now would like to welcome Dr. Eileen Xiao, Dr. Paul Atkinson, Dr. Fionn Davies, and Dr. Sala Ferez for our afternoon plenary. Over to you, Eileen.
Thank you, Paul. Afternoon, friends, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eileen Xiao. I am from Singapore, and I'm the regional representative in Asia for ICEM. I think I'm singing to the choir when I say that the key features of emergency medicine are acute care focus and differentiated patients, high acuity patients, 24/7 availability, multidisciplinary approach, resuscitation, and stabilization. Emergency medicine comes with unique challenges, clinical, operational, systemic, and personal difficulties. The plenary, Saving Emergency Medicine, a global perspective and current challenges and possible solutions, reflects the observations and thoughts of our three illustrious speakers. Paul, Fionn, and Saleh had over their career shown passion, grit, tenacity, and perseverance in growing emergency care in their countries, their regions, and the world at large. All three were attracted to emergency medicine for its breadth, dynamism, and variety of work. We welcome our first speaker. Dr. Paul Atkinson is a professor in emergency medicine at Dalhousie University, based at the Horizon Health Network in St. John, New Brunswick, Canada. Paul, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Eileen, and thank you all for coming in on such a beautiful day. It's sunny outside, and here we are, saving emergency medicine. Thank you for the very kind introduction. It's humbling to be here on the stage. As we go through this afternoon, you can see that we actually did plan to try and coordinate our short talks. We had a coffee yesterday, and we're hoping to focus in on caring, thriving, and advocacy, the three themes that will run through these three talks and then a discussion afterwards. But Eileen mentioned that I work and live in the beautiful province of New Brunswick, Canada, on the Bay of Fundy. I should say, I'm not an ICEM president. I feel a little bit like the odd one out. And I'm also probably I'm not from somewhere you've ever heard of, right? So who in the audience has ever heard of New Brunswick, Canada? And who in the audience has ever been to New Brunswick, Canada? Fantastic, that's wonderful. And this is it on the stage. You can see that's the ICEM beach. And that's the Bay of Fundy, so it's the highest tides in the world. So if you're coming through, look me up. Seriously, come say hi, come through and see the beauty. Now, I'm humbled to be here, but we're here to talk about saving emergency medicine. Not just defining its scope, not just about adding resources or demanding reform, but to try to return to something deeper, which is why we went into this specialty in the first place. So to go to the birth of my career in emergency medicine, I have to go back to Belfast. Who's been to Belfast, Northern Ireland? Okay, not as many as who have been to New Brunswick. There's something. So this is the Titanic Museum. If you are in Belfast, please take a moment to visit the Titanic. Obviously, the Titanic is not a happy story. The Titanic sank on April 14th. The Titanic, in a way, links my beginnings in Belfast in a crazy emergency system and here working in Atlantic Canada in a more peaceful yet equally disrupted system. So I want to begin with this story, and I want to take three quick stories of three people who were on the Titanic. Sidney Leslie Goodwin, who was also known as the Unknown Child, is buried in Nova Scotia. Sidney was found in the water, wrapped in 4 blankets and coats by parents who were drowning, trying to save their child to no end. Sidney represents those of us we have lost, not because we have failed, but because the system has failed them. Thomas Andrews was the ship's designer and engineer. He stayed aboard the ship as it went down, trying to save others. He represents, I believe, most of you in this room and us in this room. He represents those who keep showing up and keep trying, even though the ship around us is sinking. Bruce Ismay was the heir to the White Star Line. Bruce Ismay thought that 20 lifeboats were enough for the Titanic. Bruce Ismay jumped onto one of those lifeboats and survived. Perhaps he reminds us of what happens when leadership downplays the risk and ignores the frontline reality of what everyone is facing. So, I'm reminded of a quote by Haddon. Those of you who are involved in trauma will know of the Haddon Matrix. William Haddon wrote that every patient who presents to an emergency department is a failure of the public health system, not a success. So let's bear that in mind as we focus in on how to save our system of emergency medicine. And let's remember what Haddon said we were actually dealing with. So what is emergency medicine like today? Well, 3 years ago, we penned a short editorial that seemed to go viral. I want to thank Dr. Innes, who's sitting right there, for working with me on this. It launched part of a three-part series. It was the first paper. I'd like to just read a few words from it, if I may. Emergency departments are failing. Triage lineups, packed waiting rooms, ambulance offload delays, unacceptable treatment delays, waiting room disasters, and frustrated patients leaving before they are seen. Nurses hitting the wall, leaving EDs for more sustainable lives. A vicious cycle of demand, dysfunction, and distress that aggravates crowding, wait times, and left without being seen rates. This is the heart of the problem. The ED is the wrong place for many patients. We wrote most. I changed it to many, Grant, I'm sorry. It's the wrong place to begin with, and certainly for most after a few hours. EDs are designed for 1 to 6 hour encounters. We're not psychiatrists, we're not surgeons, we're not geriatricians or GPs. And leaving frail or acutely ill patients on narrow stretchers in noisy, crowded rooms for hours or days would be unacceptable anywhere else in the system, so why is it acceptable here? So the series evolved, and we started there with that crisis that we were trying to describe. We called for action. Action around defining scope, action around resources. We then moved on in the second series, and I want to thank Riyadh Abulabin, Eddie Lang, for partnering with me on that. And we talked about training, and how do we train people to have the skills for this current situation that we face and for the future. But finally, we moved on to part 3, saving emergency medicine compassion, and I want to thank Kavish Chandra, Krishna Pulchan, and Anton Hellman for partnering on this paper. And in this paper, we posed this hypothesis that to save emergency medicine, we need to do more than just advocate for the space resources to deliver care. We must do that. That's the foundation of this pyramid. We must train. We must adapt our training. We must not be fixed in the past. But most importantly, without this, there is no real purpose of any of that. We must do all of this with compassion. It is our moral duty to advocate for resources. It is our professional duty to train. And together, what will sustain us is maintaining compassion. Now, compassion is not just a sentiment. Compassion must lead us to action. Our societies say we should be compassionate. The US, compassionate is in the AMA Principles of Medical Ethics. In the UK, it's one of the 6 cores of NHS Constitution. But does it actually matter? We talk about it. Think about this. A 34-year-old unhoused male shows up to your emergency department in winter with frostbite. Does it really matter if you understand the science of frostbite if you send him back out onto the street? Isn't it the compassion and the going the extra mile that will actually save his feet? What about the 60-year-old paramedic who just can't face work anymore since she performed CPR on a drowning child last fall? Is it science that will help her, or is it compassion and listening that will help her get through her next shift? And what about the 69-year-old who reports dizziness? Again, will it be the ECG interpretation skills you have, or will it be the compassion to arrange a safer home environment for her that will keep her alive to 79? So the interplay between the mind and body is real. We heard about it in the last talk, which was a very scientific talk. We heard about Takotsubo syndrome, stress, cardiomyopathy. Broken heart syndrome is the downside. Thank you for my warning. But compassionomics is the opposite. Compassionomics is the science of how compassion leads to positive physiological changes. Sympathy, understanding, empathy, feeling, and compassion, acting. What can this do for us? It'll help our patients, and this is meta-analysis I'm quoting, by improving their outcomes. It helps the systems by reducing the number of tests we do. And it helps us by lowering burnout. And we can build in compassion into every interaction by an extra 40 seconds. This has been studied in functional MRIs, PET scans, and other settings to show that different hormones are released when you act in a situation that is distressing rather than stepping away and being emotional. Be emotional, but act on the emotions, and you will benefit yourself. In fact, we all like to think survival of the fittest. It's a misnomer. Charles Darwin was a great man, but he did not say that survival of the fittest was what caused evolution. What he actually said was that communities where there was the greatest number of sympathetic members would flourish best and rear the greatest number of offspring. In other words, community and caring. And to close, how do we do this? It's not just an idea. Well, there are tips. Feel free to take a photograph. I don't have time to go through them all, but I will highlight a couple. Thanking someone for waiting when you go into the room. Sitting down beside them rather than standing over them. Letting them finish their story. On average, most patients in emergency departments require 29 seconds to tell their story, and the average emergency physician interrupts after 11 seconds. And then at the end, asking them, is there anything more that I can do for you? And I don't want you to go away thinking that this is just some nicey, easy thing, and actually it won't benefit. I give enough. I'm burnt out. I give enough. Do it for you. There are two axes of concern. Concern for self, concern for others. Apathy is when you have no concern for anyone. Burnout is when you've only concern for others and not for yourself. Success is when you are concerned and act for others, but put some boundaries around it and make sure you look after yourself and have self-compassion. So I want to thank you for your time. I want you to just to finish on this quote from Mahatma Gandhi. Compassion is a muscle that gets stronger with use, and he's not talking metaphorically. He's actually speaking physiologically. When you stop and get up off the seat in the bus or the subway for the pregnant woman, you build your compassion muscle in your brain, the neurons. When you still sit there and look at your phone, you shrink it. When you ignore a waiting room and don't do anything for those people, you shrink your compassion. When you go out and offer something, at least an explanation, you grow it. Thank you for your time. Remember resources, remember training, but please remember compassion.
Thank you, Paul. Our next speaker is Dr. Fionn Davis, a consultant emergency physician from the University Hospital at Leicester, United Kingdom, and is the immediate past president of IFEM. Fionn, all yours.
Thank you, Eileen. And I think what Paul just reminded me was a tip that I had from a senior colleague a few years ago. And when the department is at its busiest, spend a little more time with a patient. And it renews you, it's good for the patient, but just to stop and say, oh, that's an interesting name, where does that come from? Or what did you used to do before you were retired? And instead of plunging headfirst into every case, 11 seconds later interrupting them, just take a couple of moments out for them and for you, and that'll re-energize you for the next few hours for that shift. That compassion does feed us. We wouldn't be doing what we do, choosing the career that we've chosen, unless we were compassionate, because emergency medicine is one of the most giving specialties in what it sucks out of you and what you want to put into it. And I want to there are the things that we can't change. You know, we can't change our country's politics. We can't change the situation in primary care. We can't change so many things. But there are things we can change. So in this section, I want to talk about thriving and just a few things that I believe make a difference. So Paul showed this slide, and you know, you can keep giving, and actually that might drain you, or you can keep giving, and that might make you thrive. I work in a department that's exceptionally busy. It's the busiest department in Western Europe. We see about 850 patients per day. The place is bananas most of the time. We have overcrowding. We now have up to 3-day waits for admissions. But actually, that team that you see there is a happy team. And there are a lot of factors to that. And I've kind of narrowed it down to 3 topics when I was doing this talk. First, it really does matter. Your basic needs do need to be addressed. It also matters that someone cares. You're not the only person who's out there that cares. Your leader, your department's lead, or the nursing leader, or the manager of the department actually is going to fight for what's right. And that matters to us. As Victoria Brazil said this morning, the minute you start to lose that, you're losing everybody. The other thing I did want to just share some practical tips on that we've learned as a department is having some control over your working life. But going back to just basic needs, it matters that we're not working hungry. It matters that we have breaks. So what about timetabling your breaks? What about having some break rules? And just being absolutely sure that everybody on shift, give or take an hour or 2, is not past hunger and hypoglycemia in their neurons. Do you have access to water? Do you have access to clean toilets? I mean, it sounds so basic standing here, but it just makes a difference. It's what gets you out of bed with a spring in your step that morning, which is, I know it's going to be hell when I get there, but actually, I feel valued, I'm looked after, and I'm with a team that I like, and we get on. Are you getting enough sleep? Actually, what is your rota pattern? Is it as physiological as it can be? There's a lot of science around that. You know, why do you accept what you're given? And I kind of think we're a little bit lucky in the UK, and I think I can make comparisons, having been the president of the International Federation. We do have quite a lot of flexibility in how we design the rotas, and it's an accepted culture that actually we should have some control over that. We should have some planning time. And we should be able to match the shifts to physiological limits. So there are limits to how many night shifts you can do. There are limits to what kind of length of shift that you can do. And that stuff does matter. But even within your own department, is there a quiet space? How many of us either go into an empty cubicle, if there's any such thing, and just draw the curtains sometimes, just for like 30 seconds, just like get the world away, or retreat to the toilet and think, I'm just going to stay here just for a minute and just have some peace and quiet where they can't find me. You'll come out and they'll say, where have you been? I've been looking for you. But take the 2 minutes. So does your department have somewhere you can literally shut the door? There's actually maybe has a label on it saying quiet space for those that need it. We invented that through COVID, and we've kept it because it works. Are you safe from violence? You know, do you have security guards who really know their job and can do their job well, who don't just come across heavy style? They're your own security guards who are used to the ED population, if you have that luxury, to have your own core team who understand how to talk someone down, who understand that the person who's toxicologically driven at the moment will be okay in an hour's time, and how to handle that, to de-escalate it. Are the staff safe from violence getting to work, from work? So when we had a new CEO about 4 years ago, guess was top of the list of people wanting to talk to him about the car parking, because it wasn't safe. You know, I go up a multi-story car park where drug addicts are shooting up in the stairwell, and I don't like it, and it negatively influences the shifts that I choose to work, because I don't want to be there 11 o'clock at night on my own. So these things matter. These things really matter. The feeling that someone else is fighting for what's right matters, but because Dr. Saleh is going to talk about advocacy, I think I'm going to leave most of that to him. But we had a head of department one time, a long time back, who for a couple of years, very, very peaceful person, very calming. You'd go into his office, you could offload, leave it with me. And when I was head of department, I thought, I need to learn this, because I'm like, tell me more, right, I'll fix this. And sort of leave it with me. But after a couple of years, that leave it with me, which meant just thank you and pass it sideways, it didn't work. It didn't work. We could see ourselves slipping backwards. We could see things being encroached upon that we'd said were hardline boundaries. So having somebody who does take it on, who is prepared to fight, who is prepared to make enemies, does motivate you to go working for that in that department. I thought I'd better show a little bit of theory rather than just opinion. Competence is, these two guys, they looked at what motivates people and what energizes people. And they talked about, this is going back 30 years of science, external and internal factors. So the external factors, you know, you may be told you have to do this, you have to do that, there are targets to achieve, et cetera, et cetera. So it'll motivate you to an extent because you have to do this stuff. But actually internal motivation matters the most. And when they broke it down, they said that you're internally motivated if you feel you can do the job. Well, I think in emergency medicine, we're very good at training. So I think most of us can tick that box. The relatedness, which is, I guess, what Paul was talking about, really, but that having that team feeling, that relationship feeling, unless you're in a very dysfunctional department, I think we work pretty well as teams. So you're getting that nurturing side of things. But the autonomy is the one that interests me, is how much control do you have over your working day? And some top tips that I think I've observed over my 35 years since I was qualified is it really matters to separate that clinical from that non-clinical time. If you're trying to be two places at once, your head is split, your adrenaline's going, you're getting frustrated, you're getting tired. But it's more than that. We also need to teach people that, and educate people that it's not just sleeves rolled up dramatics. You know, we do have non-clinical stuff that needs doing, and it needs doing properly. And we need to keep banging that drum. So in our consultant contract, we actually have a sharp demarcation between clinical and non-clinical, but that needs to translate into the actual. And we've been pretty hardline as a department. So when it's non-clinical time and the proverbial has hit the fan, oh, can you get people out of their offices? We have been very hardline about that because at the end of the day, it doesn't make a lot of difference. There and then, you're going to come in tomorrow and guess what? We're overcrowded still. But it means you can protect your time and focus on training, focus on the other things you need to do. I really think that makes a big difference to morale if you know what you're doing and you can ring fence that time. The other thing, this is a spreadsheet, and it was probably, I think, 2007 that we introduced self-rostering in our department. Now, I know some of the things I'm saying don't directly apply to you, and you may look at this and say, there's no way we can do this. But is there some element of this that you could do? So this is a spreadsheet where everybody's job plan is looked at in terms of, are you a full-time person or a part-time person? So that immediately, it's like an algorithm. It is just a very, very clever spreadsheet with lots of calculations in it. So bottom right-hand corner on the FION tab will say what FION has to do for the department for the next year. It runs 1st of April to 1st of April. I can tell you what shifts I am working next March. And that matters to me when I'm planning my personal life. And if I find that I'm down to have a shift next March on this particular day that my friend's 60th birthday party is on, that's fine. Within a 6 weeks window, I just take that shift out and I put it over there. Now, in order to play the puzzle game, you have to have some empty slots. So we have put in 5% of slots as available for internal locum work. Doesn't that sound expensive? Doesn't that sound open to gaming? not if you create some rule sets around it. And do you know what? We never have something that we can't go to because we're working. We never have gaps on the rota. And when there is a gap, it is filled internally by one of your own colleagues who knows the department. And this really drives self-satisfaction. It also drives our abilities to always take your kid to whatever class it might be on a Thursday night, or for me in the presidency to be able to create a bit of space so I can have that trip aboard. Yeah, I have to make up for it either side, but at least there's no hassle about trying to clear those few days, as long as I've done it in advance. You might all say where you work, this is myth, that you just can't do this. Maybe you can't go the whole hog, but we did it, and then a couple of hospitals next to us did it, and I don't know what the stats are. I don't know if we've got our Royal College President, Adrian, in the audience, but I think there's something like 70-80% of departments are doing this for their consultant rota now. It works. It brings so much work-life integration. It's really useful. And you can see what you owe, you can see what you need to do. There's rules around it, weekends, nights, etc., etc. So those would be my tips for keeping your staff coming back and not defecting to other services. Basic needs, make sure you have got strong leaders who really are fighting for what's right, and create some rule sets around protecting time. Thank you.
Thank you, Fionn. Our third speaker is Dr. Saleh Fares Al-Ali, an emergency physician in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, and the president of IFEM. Saleh, the time is yours.
Hello. Yeah, thank you so much, Eileen and Paul. I just want to reassure you that if you go back to 2008, I think, and you look at the locum rota in your department, you'll see my name there. So I love being there. I did some locum in New Brunswick, and I love the seafood and the great vibe there. So it's a beautiful place. I think to move on with this, you saw more of the compassion side and what we need to do as a human being, as emergency physician. Then how do we take care of us, thriving through our specialty? But then it goes into what can we do? And this is where so many people could argue that, advocating for the specialty is someone else's job. Like, somebody, CABE would do it, or, IFEM would do it, or so. But it's actually a responsibility that starts from us. We all can be CABE presidents. We all can be IFEM presidents. We just need to go that extra mile. A lot of people keep thinking, and I always encourage the juniors, is also to go beyond, the emergency department thinking. We, as emergency physicians, go through residency. That's what we do. That's what we are good at. But then, who's going to take care of the specialty? Who's going to advocate for it? Problems, I think you heard many of them. You see them. You live them. We've been hit so many times with pandemics. We deal with the spectrum of life, pediatric all the way to geriatric. We need to be multitaskers, but the system is so big, and they all come to us, and we need to be there for patients. But who's there for, who's there for us, as a specialty, as providers? And we need to really be, taking care of this. So IFEM, as an international federation for emergency medicine, we thought as values, inclusivity, being the forward-thinking federation of the specialty, the empowerment, the mentoring for growing systems and societies. We work with a global global emergency medicine advocacy. We work with regional emergency medicine, but also we work, as I mentioned in my opening speech, with national societies, and that where it matters for different communities. We're over 70 members, and it's growing. The great interest now with the specialty, and it's very exciting that the specialty, yes, started in certain, and one of them is Canada, definitely, but it's really growing elsewhere, and I can really discuss this, and you see great interest in elsewhere in the world benefiting of the developed systems as well. So IFEM, we sat together as the board and trying to see what can we offer as a federation. CAPE is a member, and as I mentioned, founding member of IFEM, but we have a big ship. We have a big responsibility as well when it goes to the global voice. So we thought of the 4 Ps here at the top, how to ultimately professionalize the specialty, but we need to think of the policies that we need to develop that serves and addresses all those challenges that we do. Who should we partner with? Governments, NGOs, and others who can get our voice across and help us solve our challenges. How can we serve you as our people and our community? And the rest, the S's, are all the infrastructure that we need to take care of. So many policies, of course, we need to be, as IFEM, to be the place, to be as a problem or a global problem-solving hub for emergency medicine. We had an excellent meeting yesterday where CAPE, the founding nations, regional societies got together. Guess what? Same problems, right? So we just need to take it to the next level and act on it collectively as a global community. We need to address the challenges. We need to identify them. That by itself improves the feeling and the sort of the stress that we live in, that I'm not only there, it's not the only one, I'm actually sharing challenges. And actually I just came actually from same EMS track, great talks, great solutions, very nice presentations of solutions in different parts of the world trying to address the challenges that the EMS systems go through. We have different publications. You can visit our website, and we try to think of the future. This is a nice campaign that we did collectively, including CAPE as well, and it affected it has a great response globally. It was translated in different languages. Some politicians and some administrators from hospitals really looked at it. The moment it comes from a global voice, people take it seriously, and we need, that's why, to get together. Multiple staff retention, that's a webinar that we are doing. We're working with our colleagues in the nursing specialty, emergency nursing, we're working with WHO, Fionn here in the middle with our colleagues, working very closely with WHO. We're getting your voice to a global level. There are multiple resolutions now taking care and focusing on emergency care, addressing many of the challenges, but WHO needs our voice. It needs our contribution to be able to do what we do. We're partnering with multiple specialties, most importantly, you as the people. So we have, as we mentioned, we're representative, we're a federation of national and regional societies that we feel we represent the global emergency medicine. So we hope to be the true voice and the strong advocate for emergency medicine globally. We take feedback, we engage with you here, we hear, we listen, and we really go back and take it seriously, and we act on it. Montreal been a wonderful destination. Thank you again to CAPE for hosting us, but we have beautiful destinations coming. Mark your calendar and hope to see you there. We try to be there for our colleagues. We try to support them. You can't imagine how much just being there with them builds that confidence in those leaders and national leaders. Just the international community is there for them and to support them. Hopefully down the line, you're going to hear more about the IFEM Academy. It's an umbrella that we offered. Not much of high-income country resources, but low-resource countries out there for educators. How do we really improve emergency medicine education? Fionn will be talking about this in another session, but it is more of the challenges that we address: limited resources, no certification. WHO actually asked us in a recent meeting of offering certification for the manpowers. We're offering on our booth, you can see a project that hopefully going to come to light on certification. That's aimed to be improving the outcome. Ultimately, if you have a very good department, well-resourced, well-staffed, we think that we will hopefully improve patient outcome. We have different committees, special interest groups. We invite you to participate. Believe me, your idea can go global. We jump on great ideas. You can subscribe. You can visit our website. So hopefully with a strong international strategy, we can improve the teamwork and we can really deliver the patient care. Don't be alone. We're here and we are stronger together. Thank you.
Thank you, Saleh. We're now open to the question and answer session. Please go to the nearest microphone and pose your questions. I cannot see. While waiting, I have a question for all the three speakers. If you could implement one change tomorrow to improve emergency medicine globally, what would it be? Perhaps I start with Saleh.
Yeah, okay. So I would say maybe the one big thing if I would improve is communication across our community. We have silos in certain regions or within regions. So I would say that's the biggest one. There are so many solutions out there that other communities would need. So maybe if there's one magic stick, I would start with communication.
Okay. Fionn?
Thanks, Eileen. I think we need to work on debunking the word emergency because people interpret that as unplanned, and you can plan for emergency care. And we kind of showed it in COVID, but I think we need to keep that theme going and get our politicians, get our local hospital administrators to understand you can plan this stuff. You know what the flow is. You know what's coming in today. You know what's going out tomorrow. And to get planning into the consciousness of people who otherwise think emergency equals chaos. It shouldn't be.
How about Paul?
Yeah, and perhaps I would build on both of those in that I think we need to refocus on the core mission of why we have emergency medicine. And let's make sure we're good at what we do. What do I mean by that? I mean that I don't believe that anyone or any system can do everything for everyone all the time. And yet, I, over my career, have felt that that has become a cry or even an identity that we embrace, which is that we have to do everything for everyone all the time. And yet, you have to square that off against a compassionate approach and why you went into this job and why we continue to show up. And what I would say is that compassion ties the training and the advocacy together to make sure that your patients have access to what they need. It doesn't mean that you always have to do everything for them. So I think that would be define our core and make sure we're good at it.
All right. Thank you very much. Anybody at the... Yes. Yes, sir.
It's John Dreyer from Western University in London, Ontario. I just want to add to that, Paul. I think we really need to be proactive about, as new therapies get downloaded to us, to actually guard against that. I mean, we have a history of taking on more and more tasks in the emergency department over the last 40 years. And originally it was because we wanted to be recognized, we wanted to be doing the right thing for patients as quickly as possible. But we're at a point where we can't continue to take on new tasks. So we really need to work with our colleagues in cardiology and neurology and all the other specialties that we interact with and say to them, you know, we can't do this, so we need to work collaboratively where you're going to take on these patients earlier in their course, because otherwise we are going to continue to spiral out of control and we're going to be even more bed blocked because of all the things that we're doing that we no longer have the capacity to do. So I think it's the collaborative work with colleagues in other specialties that we really need to focus on.
Since I was mentioned in that, if that's okay, I agree with you. I think, though, where are we in Canada 40 years into this? Maybe in some other countries we're 50 years in, and some other countries we're 5 years into emergency medicine. So I think it is important, as to Sal's point, as more and more countries embrace this model, we have to be clear what that model is for. And yes, there are things we will need to take on that are new if they meet the needs, the emergency care needs of our population. Right, we all embraced intubation. We're going to need to learn how to interpret an ECG differently for OMI. But there are a lot of things that don't actually address the emergency needs, and I think that's what you're saying, is we have to be so careful not to just be facilitators of care, but focus in on doing our job properly.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to debate about this. I mean, you just mentioned OMI that we heard a bit more about in the last talk here. When it actually comes down to it, as a competent emergency physician, you need to be able to recognize that the patient needs the care of a cardiologist, and you need to discuss that case. So you actually don't need to be able to recognize all those things on the ECG. You need to be able to treat the patient clinically and then call your colleague and say, this is what I've got, and this is what the ECG looks like, and turn to their expertise. That's not a sin, that's not a failing.
It's humbleness, I guess, at some level. Humility is the word, not humbleness. Apologies, I'm from Belfast.
Yeah. Maybe one thing I would add to this, just part of the global collaboration, Dr. Adrian Boyle yesterday mentioned a nice piece of work that they've done at the Royal College of Emergency Medicine in the UK, is defining what emergency medicine and what's not emergency. I haven't read that report. I mean, that's part of the meeting I was referring to earlier. But this is the way we collaborate. We can capitalize and build on those efforts and take it to the global level. Collectively, we agree what we should do and what we shouldn't do. That's also protect our specialty.
Right. Because of time, I'd like to just give an applause to the three speakers for an excellent write-up.